All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time today to join us in our session. My name is Eeuw van den Bos, and I'm today here together with my colleague Marijn van Vught. We represent a company called eStorage, and at eStorage we are, among other things, dedicated to helping organizations prepare for something which nowadays almost seems somewhat inevitable, which is a ransomware attack. We do this by bringing together people, processes, and technology to ensure that these components are aligned and ready for action when a cyber attack actually strikes. More specifically, we work with our clients to make sure that they have the best team, the best architecture, and the right recovery playbook in place to bounce back after a cyber attack. Our goal is simple. We want to minimize downtime and help our clients recover as swiftly as possible. And by doing so, we are looking to reduce the impact of data loss, revenue loss, reputational damages, and regulatory fines, of course. So how do we do this? In order to go into that topic, I want to go to the screen, which says disaster recovery is not the same as cyber recovery. We feel that this is a bit of a misconception in the market. A lot of times, the companies that we speak to, they think they have a disaster recovery plan in place, and then that also prepares them for a cyber attack. This is not the case. It's very different. Traditionally, disaster recovery was designed to ensure business continuity in case of in the situation where a major disaster strikes. So something, oh, sorry, wrong clicker. Something like this, a fire or potentially a hurricane or a flood or whatever. And the principle behind this is very simple, obviously. You have your data in one primary location, you replicate your data to a secondary location, and when the primary location goes down, such like this, like a fire, then you can just work from the other location. You still have access and relatively little issues. This is an example of a company called OVH. They had, as you can see, a pretty significant fire. The entire building went down. Fortunately, there were no casualties whatsoever. But this particular company, they had 3 other data centers who could help this one, and they could continue operating relatively without any issues. Well, no issues at all, but relatively, like I said. Now, this is a clear example of a disaster recovery scenario. If we go to the next slide, it's interesting. This is a different data center provider, and they had multiple data centers, 6 of them, and they were attacked with a ransomware attack. Now, I think you would agree with me that these data centers look better than this one, but still, the issue in this particular example was way bigger. Because here, once one data center was infected, all of them were infected, and they were completely down. Now, this happens, of course, because if you have an attack in your primary location and you replicate your data to your failsafe, you also replicate the malware. So the problem resides in the same in the backup location as well, and that means that you're down completely. To tell you a little bit more about that, so sorry, one second. Yeah, so these are just 2 examples, very easy, straightforward examples to describe the difference between disaster recovery and cyber recovery. And of course, both of these topics, they fall under the umbrella of business continuity. But we feel that for cyber recovery, there has to be a different plan in place. You have to have a bespoke plan which takes into account your specific IT requirements, your specific business requirements, and every company should look to this and get together and make sure that they have a cyber recovery plan in place. Now, to tell you a little bit more about this, and specifically also how we as eStorage, as a company, help other companies get this recovery plan, I'm going to give the word to my colleague, Marijn van Vught. He will tell you a little bit more.
Hello, everybody. First off, I'd like to do an introduction to cyber recovery so that everyone knows what cyber recovery is and what it takes. So you see the little dead head there. That's when disaster strikes. Your organization is hit by a large-scale malware situation, and you're presented with options. The first option, of course, is paying the ransom. And your second option is to attempt a cyber recovery. But you see also the time there. It is very critical for an organization, if you attempt a cyber recovery, that you do it within a certain time frame. So this time frame will be different for every organization. But if the cyber recovery takes too long, it can be an existential problem, and you might have to resort to paying the ransomware anyways. So when you're attempting a recovery, you're always doing a race against the clock, and time is of the essence. So this is important. So if you aren't able as an organization when you're hit with a ransomware attack, and you aren't able to answer these 3 questions within a short amount of time, you won't be able to recover quickly, and the damages will be too large, and you will have failed the recovery. So to understand how a successful cyber recovery, what steps need to be taken in a successful cyber recovery, I will walk you through the steps, which are logical steps. And depending on the preparation you did in your organization, these will be successive steps, so they'll be after each other, or some might be able to do it at the same time, but it depends on your preparedness. So the large-scale ransomware attack has happened. Your infrastructure is down, you're shutting down your internet connections, and people in your organization can't work anymore. But you don't know what happened. You don't know the scale. You don't know where the ransomware has been done. You don't know which group did the ransomware attack. You don't know what malware was used. You don't know anything. You only know you can't work and you have a big problem. The first thing you need to do is set up a crisis organization. And what this crisis organization has to do really depends also on your organization. For example, you can imagine if you're a hospital, the first thing you need to do is get the patients out of your hospital to other hospitals. So that's not much of an IT question, but it is very much important that you have the right procedures in place to make sure the business impact is as little as possible. Also, you need to have all people also within the IT organization in place, and they need to know who's responsible for what do we need to do. So your IT is down. Do you have the necessary phone numbers? Do you have your procedures ready in a place where you can access them? The next step is you call a company, maybe you have a contract with a company which has to do forensic research. So your primary IT environment, which can be an on-premise environment, but can also be a cloud environment or both, will be locked down. And you can't erase it and start over because you don't know what happened. So for example, you call Fox IT, and they will start to perform forensic research. And they will give you the necessary information about who did the ransomware attack, what ransomware is used, where it is, where it isn't, how to clean it, etc. So you're not restoring now, you're just researching. So you're losing time already. Next, you need to empty the environment, because you need an empty functional environment to do the restore to. Some companies right now are also, instead of emptying the environment, are making a separate environment especially meant for cyber restore, to do cyber restore tests, but also to be able to start restoring earlier than the forensic research has completed its job. But you can imagine if you have successive steps here, it will take a lot of time, and which is quite precious in this stage. So after you emptied the environment, the next step is to recover your infrastructure. So in the end, you want to recover your business processes, you want to recover your applications, but those applications do depend on working infrastructure. So this can be networking, this can be your virtual infrastructure, but also this can be your Active Directory. Your Active Directory is often a very high risk target for hackers because they really want to have access to everything. If you don't have procedures in place for recovering this infrastructure, you need to start manually building this new infrastructure, which also will require quite a bit of time. The next step is clean up the most recent backup. So often people think, oh, well, we have a backup, we'll just restore to the last clean copy. But those hackers have entered your network, have tried to proliferate through your network, affect more machines and more machines and more machines. So they might have been in your network for weeks, maybe months. You can't just, in most organizations, you can't just set back information and backups from months old, because you would lose way too much critical information, which is needed for your company. So what you actually need to do is get the most recent backup, which isn't encrypted, but has malware and attackers in it, and clean that backup from those malware and tools, and use that for the restore. But you also just need the capability to do this. If you don't have this prepared, it will take a lot of time to have these measures in place and restore your infrastructure. So the next step is restoring the application. Some applications are easy to restore. Yeah, you just put up the backup, you start the virtual machine and it works. But a lot of applications are way more complicated than that. Maybe they require multiple backup points, and those backups aren't in sync, and you start up the application, you get all kinds of errors. Maybe they depend on external connections with other databases of maybe a supplier or stuff like that. And this all kind of stuff can happen when you try to restore an application, especially if you haven't tested restoring this application. So it's very critical that you try to restore the application, that you test it in advance, and that you know which difficulties you can face. Because if you don't know what difficulties you can face and you are in this situation, this also will add up to your total restore time. So, and finally, you also need to test the application. You can't just, depending on your company, but usually you can't just restore an application and present it to your customers. Somebody has to verify it's okay, and before it can be republished to the end users. And then, of course, most organizations don't have a single application. Most have multiple, often hundreds of applications. And you really need to think about what applications, what business processes do I need to restore first, and what can go after. So in what sequence will we restore this, also to minimize the time. If you don't know what applications, what virtual machines, what databases are the most critical to your organization, you will lose quite a bit of time fixing the applications which might be not as critical as others, and also losing a lot of time in the total recovery time that you need. So the major point I'm trying to drive home here is that cyber recovery really is different to disaster recovery. It takes time. Even if you are very well prepared, I think that if you are very well prepared, so if you have everything in place, you have the technical capability, you have the processes in place, you're testing this yearly, you might be able to get all these steps back to 5 working days. You might be able, if you're really good. Most companies that get ransomware hits are out way longer. So this is a bit a high risk for companies, because if you ask companies just right off the bat, how long can you be offline before it does real damage to your company? You get answers, maybe a day, maybe 3 days, some they say 5 days, but they never say weeks. And often they start with 4 hours because they are used to saying that in a disaster recovery scenario. So yeah, we have RPO 4 hours, but the RPO 4 hours is not feasible when you talk about cyber recovery. So as eStorage, as a company, we have developed an approach which is 5 steps in which we help companies get prepared to be able to recover within the targets that they set for themselves. So within the maximum outage time, the MOT. The first step in this process is what we call the impact analysis. In that we look at law, procedures, rules the company has to adhere to, what they want to have for the targets to have for themselves. We look at what processes are the most important for you, what are your top processes, what needs to work first, and also we present, we explain, so it's what cyber recovery is and why it's important. So, and when you have your targets, you know what you want to achieve in cyber recovery. The next phase is the assessment. In that we evaluate the current capabilities of the company and assess what the gap is between the current capabilities and where they want to be. And we give advices on things that are, the quick wins, the low-hanging fruit, about what they can do to improve their recovery times. So the next phase is the technical phase. With what are we going to recover? In which we developed 5 reference architectures. These architectures depend on the company and your risk appetite and the money you want to spend. Have an increasing amount of cyber protection for your company, which enables a speedy recovery. And the highest level of protection we've implemented at financial institutions, for example. The last one is getting the cyber recovery going. So you might have implemented the technical part of it, but then you need procedures, runbooks, yearly tests, and we help companies get these in place, which leads to the final phase, which is cyber recovery assurance, that is keeping fit. So you can have your cyber recovery working at one point in time, but you really can't keep it that way if you stop practicing. You might have new applications. You need to add them to your cyber recovery runbooks. So there's quite a bit of keeping it fit, keeping in shape, having people know what their roles are, what they need to do, so to keep cyber recoverable as a company. So this is what we wanted to tell you guys today.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you guys have a great day. Cheers.